A lot of y'all may have noticed that this car has not been in the channel much lately. Actually, it hasn't been for quite a while. And that's really because it had been working pretty well. I had done, the intake manifold, I'd gotten the fuel tank going, the fuel pump, most fuel lines replaced, and I've just been driving it. Well, then I went on my winter break from school. It's about a month and a half long. So every video I filmed over the break was not going to be on this car because I had left this car here and I took the 85 back home. Well, I got back, like my first day back. I hop in the car, I go to the gas station. I mean, the car's been sitting for a month and a half. Starts right up, drive to the gas station, and then I am putting gas in the car. Everything fine. Hop back in, go to start it up, and it will only run while I'm turning the key. So this being an older one with points ignition, that means a ballast resistor went out. So with that, I was like, okay, not a big deal. I'll just fix it, get it back on the road. And when I got this car, it came with a electronic distributor, like what's in that car, just another factory later model distributor. And I already wanted to put it in the car anyways to get rid of the points. So I'm like, okay, gives me a good reason, I'll actually do it. Well then, now, to get it back from the gas station, I actually flat towed this RX7 behind that RX7. It went okay. And then I got back, and then the clutch hydraulics went out, which if you recall way back to the Halloween special when I replaced the clutch hydraulics in that parking lot. Well, that day I had actually ordered new hydraulics to replace the old stuff that we put in here to replace what I knew was not bad. Well, that stuff didn't get here till actually over the winter break. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't replace it. But on the way back, towing the car, got it back. I got in the car, I pushed the clutch pedal goes straight to the floor. So from sitting over the brake, it essentially lost ignition and lost its clutch. And now I pulled it back, and a day later I came back and there was fuel underneath the car. So it's also leaking fuel. So this should be a testament of don't let your car sit, stuff will break. Now, just explained all those issues to you. I have already started working on it. I've been doing a lot of the more boring stuff, like for the electronic ignition. I've never done a conversion to an electronic ignition before, so I was kind of watching some videos online, looking stuff up, reading through the wiring diagrams just for that car. And I just went through and I made my own wiring harness for it. I don't use any of the wires from the factory points ignition. I ran my own relays, fuses, everything. So I have that all laid out and the spark does work. Now, once I got the spark going, I came to start the car. Well, once I got the spark going, I spun it over, I could see it sparking. Put it all together, set the base timing, go to start it, nothing. Hit the gas, nothing. Well, then I realized that at that point, fuel pump doesn't work anymore. So I went through and I just wired in my own relay. The fuel pump was fine. I guess something when I undid the ignition wiring that also sent power to the fuel pump. So now the fuel pump has a new wiring harness, partially new wiring harness as well. So then once I got the fuel pump going, the car still wouldn't start. And I was like, dang, the spark looks really good. So I grabbed the timing light and I just put it on, just spinning it over. And I could see that it was firing right at the correct time. Pull the air cleaner off, look down into the carburetor and realize when I'm hitting the gas, there's no accelerator pump. Then look around the side and realize, oh, there's fuel on the little plastic spacer there. So the diaphragm in my accelerator pump went out too while the car was sitting. So the carburetor needs to come out and needs to be rebuilt. not rebuilt, at least that gasket replaced. So that kind of catches you back up to speed on everything that's been going on with the car. So this video, I'm just going to be going through and I'm going to be fixing all the stuff to get it back on the road. Now, like I said, I already did the wiring on the ignition, which actually currently, when you see it, there's not going to be a cap and rotor on it, because this Thursday I came back from class in the pouring thunderstorm. That car wouldn't start in the school parking lot, and I ended up stealing the cap and rotor off of this car the next day to get that car running again. But back to this. I will show you what I did to wire this up, explain what each wire does in case you want to do it to your car as well. It's simple. It really is simple. And then I will show you fixing the carburetor, doing the clutch as well. So next time you see me, I'll be explaining the ignition system to you. So most of you, this section is what y'all will care about. This car, as y'all know, 79, points ignition car. Now the whole reason I'm doing work on this car is because it stopped working because it ran out of spark. So I did an electronic ignition conversion on it. So as you can see, here's the electronic distributor. It's got its igniters, everything. Now, what I did was I made an entirely new system. As you can see, it's all my own wires. So I'll kind of just start from where the power comes in to where everything goes. Right here at this distribution block, right where it goes to the fusible links, I ran a power up to, and I split it into 2 relays. That's because one of them's for the fuel pump. And then I took a relay and I got its trigger, okay? Now, I haven't, really started it yet, so this could end up being bad, but I pulled its trigger from, sorry, it's hard to, right down there. It was a plug, and that point right there has 12 volts only when the key is in the run position. So it turns the key on when it's in run, which triggers this relay, which then sends the power down this yellow section right here, where I put a fuse for my ignition system, and then I split it right there, and that provides my power for my coils. Now here with the coils, a points ignition system has different coils. They look the same, but they have to run resistors. These you do not. So these are coils for a regular ignition system. You have to run these with the electronic. Now, you can see there's another power wire coming off down here. So if you follow this power wire, it goes over to the igniters. So you have your leading igniter and your trailing igniter. The power doesn't matter. You can pull the power from right here. The power does not send any signals. Now, when you look at your grounds, that's a different story. So like I said, here's your leading igniter and here's your trailing igniter. I have a ground, and if you follow that ground, it runs all the way back over to the ground side of this coil. What that does is it actually sends the trigger for this coil to then send to the distributor cap. And I did the same thing for the positive. Now, one thing you're probably saying is, hey, your tach runs off of one of the coils. And that is why I have all this wiring down here. One of these I know is for the tach. Which one it is, I don't know. I haven't actually really started the car yet. I just know that it does have spark and I've gotten it to sputter over. Later, I will figure out which one is for the tach, and I will let you know. I'll probably just splice it in probably right about here. So, As you can see, it's actually really pretty simple. Now, if we come over here, we have the fuel pump as well. So it's the same deal, same trigger, same big 12. Got a fuse, wire comes over here. I did poke a tiny little hole in the firewall to run it inside. Now, if we come into the car, you can see all the rust. Here's the wire where it comes through the firewall. And then this black and white wire that runs in this loom is the factory fuel pump wire. Now, since I wasn't using any of the factory fuse block for the ignition of the fuel pump anymore, I just spliced it in right here so that I wouldn't have to like get underneath the car to mess with the fuel pump wiring. But now all my ignition and fuel pump is separate from the fuse block. And the only reason I did the fuel pump was because after I took the ignition system apart, the fuel pump was no longer turning on. So hopefully that helps. I'm going to plug somebody else in here, but Rad Potential has a video on how to do it as well. I'm going to be honest, he said that there was a 12 volt signal. You could use the trigger and all of that wiring up at the front, like that big rat's nest up there. I couldn't find it. That being said, not saying he's a liar at all. I bet there is. I bet my car is just probably broken. So that's why I pulled my signal from somewhere else. But he has a really good video on it too. I watched it a lot and a lot of other research to just kind of figure the ins and outs. So it really is pretty simple. Now I really need to bleed the clutch, so I'm going to put this interior back together, and then we'll pick back up when it's time to do the clutch. Well, got the clutch system out of the car, and I have all the stuff to make new. Everything, well, except for that, but that doesn't need to be replaced. I have a new soft line, I have a new slave, new master, even a new line. So everything's gonna kind of be bolted together, but I need to make the line. I mean, when I have line, it's just a straight line. Now, you've seen me make brake lines before. You've seen me make flares. If you want to watch that, go to the Saving Matilda video. I'll link it to this video where you can watch me do flares. I'll just time-lapse this one and make a line to match this. And then I'll put it kind of all together outside the car. Maybe even, probably not bleed it outside the car, but I'll get bench split at least, and then put it back in the car. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take all of this apart and then start making up this line. Well, I know I said I was going to show y'all me making this hard line. I really was going to, but as you could probably see, and I'll show you what I did film, or I may have already showed you what I did film. It was getting really dark and hard to keep it in the frame, so I ended up just making it and putting it on. I installed the new clutch master and the new slave and the new line. I didn't show that getting put in either. I believe you can see that in the Halloween special when I did the janky repair in the parking lot. So, now, I know y'all are going to berate me for this. I did not bleed the clutch outside the car. I was by myself and I just threw it in, mocking it up, and I just kind of left it. It's empty. I'm going to fill it up. We're just going to try and bleed the whole thing together, see how it works. So here's a little quick tip for y'all. If you want to bleed something and you need some line, just get some fish tank air hose. It works really well, fits on most bleed nipples. You see I just got the line run, have a water bottle down there. And then to bleed a clutch, all you do is you have, whoops, caught my microphone on that hose clamp. But you just have someone press the clutch in and out, and then you just open up that bleed. When the clutch is pressed, it lets the air out just like bleeding brakes. Now you will probably have to pull the clutch pedal back up each time, but that's sorry. You will probably have to pull the clutch back up each time, but that's no big deal. So I will go through. I'll bleed it off camera because, again, it's something that's just really not interesting to watch, and it'll be hard to see me try and put the wrench down on there. So I will get this all done up. So I've kind of got the clutch stuff put in there. When I'm editing this, I don't know if I've already finished it yet. You'll see that then. But another issue we had was the carburetor, and still is. So as you can see right there, there's the accelerator pump. Now, when I give it gas, there should be fuel going down into the primaries, and there's not. You can also see there's fuel leaking down onto the tray down there. So clearly it's got some leaks. One of those must be the accelerator pump, since it is not working. So what I'm going to do is take it all apart, and then I'm just going to kind of tighten everything down, clean everything up, and replace that accelerator pump diaphragm in there. And I will show y'all what I do for that. So first I'll just, I'll take the carburetor off. Y'all have seen in a bunch of other videos me taking the carburetor off. It's really simple. So I'll take the carburetor off, and I'll get back to you once I have it ready to go. So got the carburetor off. Came off nice and easy. Here you can see a little bit better. Here's the accelerator pump, and it is a little wet on it, which definitely means it is the culprit of what is causing probably the primary fuel leak. It's a little wet on the bottom too, so maybe it was just leaking around the base plate. But to tighten the base plate down, you just tighten these 4 bolts. I'll give them a quick little cinch while we're at it. But the main thing is getting this diaphragm replaced in here. So I don't know how well you can see it, but there's a C-clip right here, and that allows for this rod to slide out once you get it out. So the first thing you'll need to do is get that C-clip off. Now I'll probably do that off camera because I'll need to really pay attention and use both hands. I'm not going to be able to film it very well. But once you do that, you can knock the rod out and then pull it off, and I'll show you what it's like as I pull this cap off. I got the C-clip off. Now I will say it did kind of shoot off a little bit into the pine straw, but I did find it somehow. Don't know how, but I did. But you need to pull these 4 screws off. I did already loosen them up off camera. They might be tight, as most of these screws are. They strip really easy, so be very careful when breaking them loose. So you can then just pull this off. There's the cap, and now here is the diaphragm, which it is wet all around. It's very stiff. Now I don't see, oh yep, there it is. You probably can't see it, but there is a tear. Now one thing you need to remember, there's a spring. The spring must go back in. It will not work without the spring. It's what keeps it like pushed out, so it's not just collapsed. Now here I have my new one. All you need to do is just stick it down on there and then put your cap back down. Sorry if y'all can't see it very well. I've got my hand over it. Now there's a rod on this plunger, and it needs to go right in. So here's the top. If you look on the bottom, there's a hole right there in the center. That rod needs to go in the center because that's what the lever pushes on. So get it back up. Put your spring back on, and then just put it back down just like that. So I really need 2 hands to do this, so I'm going to put it back on, and then I will tighten everything up, put the carburetor back on, and I think that is enough for y'all to figure out how to do it. So hopefully next time you see the car, it'll be running. Well, after all this work, going through, changing the ignition, doing the carburetor, and fixing the clutch, it's time to see how this thing runs. Now, I'm not going to lie, I have already started it up. I do know it runs, but just listen to this. It is so much smoother than it ever has been. Now, this is a cold start. It's like 40 degrees outside. Just starts right up. It has never run this good as long as I've had it. It is very smooth, and you can see the clutch hydraulics work as well. So, hopefully y'all enjoyed this video, getting to hear this car and see it back on the channel. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to please like and subscribe, and check out the Instagram.